On the 20th of November 2024, Pluto enters Aquarius again, having been there before twice. This is a little bit unusual, not spectacularly so. Anyway, the point is that Pluto is now in Aquarius 5 days from now when I'm speaking, and its influence in Capricorn is just at its last reach. Now, we have to think that the Pluto return that the USA is going through is reaching completion now. Its degree is 27.5 Capricorn, the Pluto position in the American birth chart. So the Pluto return of a country is a very unusual event. And what we have been considering over the last few years is the shuddering of the world's only superpower as it goes through its Pluto return. And I was asked a few questions. People have asked me why so much problem recently. What's the astrology of the time? And I think it's simply two things are happening really of major consequence to describe the astrology of why we're going through a sharp time now. And I would say that the Pluto return of the USA is a major factor. And then Pluto going into Aquarius is the second factor. Every time Pluto changes sign, history records it in events. So I spoke of this recently. The point is that now we need to anticipate Pluto in the first degree of Aquarius, the Sabian symbol of which is the Adobe Mission, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that the 30th degree of Capricorn, the one we talked about previously for Pluto, that's the secret business meeting. You think about all the business meetings that are going on now secretly as a result of Trump's success in the election. Now these guys they're going to be talking up their plans for the next 4 years, but it's not 4 years, it's a lot longer than that. I think what we have to come to terms with is that during this period when Pluto is in the first degree of Aquarius, the Adobe missions are long-lasting things, as is the military intention of building them as fortresses, and also the spreading of the word, the gospel, the belief system that backs up their right to claim land and so on, the Christian church. So these two aspects of Aquarius 1, the military and the religious, are both present. Now, you look about, you think about what's going on behind the scenes now in the secret business conference. They're talking about how over the next few weeks until Christmas time, let's say, arbitrarily, but that's when Pluto moves into the second degree. What they're going to try and do, the grey eminences behind closed doors, these politicians and other weavers and maneuvers, these guys are going to try and create a template for a lot longer than a 4-year presidential term. That's what's going on here. This is an attempt to lay down the foundation of the Aquarian age, probably. It makes sense to me that that's what's going on. And therefore, sort of, we don't understand it. It's a new level of consciousness for us, the whole Aquarian age thing. And I think we don't understand Trump. It was very easy to write him off as an idiot the first time round. But it's not so easy to write him off this time as an idiot. Whatever disdain and distaste you have for his politics, he's actually quite a shrewd manipulator. He's won through. He's gone through all of the obstacles that they put before him. And there have been no presidents facing worse obstacles ever. And yet he's come through. This is a very powerful man, and he's got a very unique way about him, which we all find disturbing one way or another. And he's not a rarity anymore. He's actually getting the popular vote. That's the thing about this man. And we're going to have to talk about him in context of bringing in the age of Aquarius. Certainly bringing in the Pluto and Aquarius period. And they will feel very similar, I would think, in terms of depth of importance. And what we have is with the first degree of, I'll read it to you actually. The first degree of Aquarius, the Adobe Mission, is likened to the Californian times. So you're going back to the time when California was settled. Interestingly, and it kind of ties in historically with this. Aquarius one, an old Adobe Mission. This is where Pluto will be until Christmas. Lasting values. Major works require group endeavor. Thus we know that they are emblematic of their times. Thousands of years ago, Stone Age man created features that were very difficult to make, Stonehenge, for example, that were very clearly used for worship and ceremony, and they show that that aspect of life was very important indeed to them. Adobe Mission similarly took great effort to place in the wild territory of California's early period, and collectively they took on the dual function of survival and worship. We might ask of ourselves, does our own set of values motivate us powerfully enough to create something sufficiently lasting that it outlives us? So the two features of it that I just mentioned, the military feature and the religious feature, they're very strongly present in politics at the moment. The military expenditures has gone through the roof recently because there's a real increase in fear of the Third World War starting. And equally, there's quite a lot of a different kind of religion in a way. I know religion typically worships God and so on, but the religious ideal, as it were, the fanaticism, the proclaiming of an individual whose words we must follow, that's not awfully different from the teachings of dictators. And you have people like Mao Zedong and now Xi, they're all wanting their people to learn their speech presentations, their teachings, their words of wisdom. That's noticeable at this time. So we are talking about religion at this time, and there's a religious fanatic war going on anyway between the Jewish people and the Arab people of the Palestines. So we've got those two things going on, and the Adobe missions were fortresses first, and we have that with the old way of America kind of colonizing the world with its buildings of fortresses and so on, military bases. China's doing it differently now. China has built 1/3 of everything that's going up in Africa at the moment. They're planting their Adobe missions. And that way that we structure our intention over the long term is what we're looking at. Now, I think what's happening over the next month is planning what will happen over the next 4 years. That's the most important thing that's going on right now. Whether we find it boring to talk about politics or not, what's actually going on that's shaking the world at the moment are mostly going to come from these secret meetings during the last few moments of Capricorn in the 30th degree so Pluto in the 30th degree of Capricorn, these secret meetings are setting up the program of the next government, which is actually setting up something new. Something has finished. There's corruption everywhere. There's poverty everywhere. Globalization's on its last legs. You know, it's dying off. The great wealth that we've enjoyed for my whole lifetime, 70 years or something, is that period's finished. And so we need to build a new period. Now, when it comes down to the personal level, we need to build our own new period out of what we managed to do when Pluto's in Aquarius. That's going to take us quite a long time. So we plan for that too. So this is a 13, 15-year kind of time of our life, Pluto in Aquarius, that we need to be restructuring everything on a very deep level. And it will be to do with the two things that I've referred to, the meaning of life. And in the end, that's a choice that you make. What gives your life meaning at the highest level? It's a choice you make. And also the military aspect of oneself, which is how do you keep enemies from the door? How do you keep the wolf from the door? How do you make yourself safe? And that wasn't an issue for most of my life, but it is an issue now for many people around the world, even in the West. There's a lot of people now are in danger every night because they sleep on the streets. Dangerous activity to sleep on the streets. Yes. It's not just the poverty and the terrible, terrible lifestyle. It's dangerous. And we have to guard against the coming times. And the coming times are more contentional. War is in the air, and it may not come to war, but it's in the air. And that means people are trying their luck. And that doesn't only apply to the flashpoints of the geopolitical scene. It applies in our own lives. There will be flashpoints in your life. There will be tests of power which can only be resolved by one person saying, right, I'm claiming this, the Adobe Mission. The Native Americans didn't invite these builders to come and put Adobe Missions up. It was an invasion. And that's what's going to happen during this next little while the world is in well, they just don't know what's going to happen next. But we know that some guys are talking about it behind secret closed doors. And that's going to affect everything in a way that is unimaginable. That's going on right now. And so that vibe is going to be going on in our own lives. You know, you're going to have to make a claim because otherwise someone else will make a claim. And that might be on the level of military. In other words, they'll take your stuff, take your money, take your job, take your house. These things are being claimed back by various agencies, banks and so on. There are reclaims going on of homes. And contention for jobs is becoming very fierce in certain places. China, for example, is going through a terrible time over these basic things, you know, home and jobs. And this will happen to us more likely now anyway. So if you feel you need to make a claim and back it up with a certain amount of force, you know, make your claim because you're strong enough to make it. Don't make another claim. You don't claim something which you're not strong enough to defend. And you don't get too embarrassed about it either. Sometimes we just have to do what we have to do because otherwise we would not get our life's work done. We would not be authentic either. We would not be in our power if we did not make the claim. Sometimes that happens. Most of us were more peaceful than that. We don't go around making claims of that type, but that's the energy of the moment. People are going to be making claims right now. and we're going to see this on a world stage. Well, we won't see it actually because it's Pluto. We will know that it's happening on the world stage because little bits of leakage will come out into the news and speculative YouTube videos and so on. They'll say, well, I wonder if this is happening, and they'll be looking for clues. But come the following, we'll go into the next degree of Aquarius in January. We'll see it come out into the open then. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Now, again, translating this to your life, the claims that you're making are not only backed up by the strength of your being, and maybe through a contest of strength with somebody else who has no right greater than yours. That's the important thing. If they've got a greater right than your right, okay, don't fight. It's rude. But if your claim is as good as theirs, then just push a little and see how good each is, you know, and just reach an equitable arrangement. But there are some times when you have to fight, win, and I think this is one of those. So we make our claims backed up by the military, but actually, in our case, our claims are about meaning of life, the spiritual meaning of life. And we're saying that our spiritual values are worth more than your materialistic ones to the world at large. Your love of fame and fortune and greed and things and living out of kilter with nature, that's brought us to this terrible position that we're in now. You did that, and we make a different claim. We claim that living well, doing the right thing, having a clear conscience, we claim that that's a practical way forward that works better than your way. Moreover, it's closer to truly representing my humanity to be that way than your fearful way. And I think the truth is that even the people that are having their power contests based on fear, I think perhaps underneath the fear there is this trust that things are safe. And beneath that, there's this willingness to be a lot more negotiating with your enemies and eventually to have less ferocious ideas about what the word enemies means. So, Pluto, first degree Aquarius, finishes around Christmas when it changes into the second. During this time, we're making our claims, Adobe Mission level. We really want these claims to be a statement of something that lasts in our life. This is an important time to get your ideas clear. And I think until Christmas, you better contemplate your life's meaning a little bit more, maybe. I will.